Has your father ever told you that you should have fought back? My hand froze on the doorknob of my childhood home. 3 years of silence, 3 years of therapy, and I was about to walk into Christmas dinner like nothing ever happened. My sister had begged me to come. She said Dad was different now. She said he wanted to apologize. The door swung open before I could knock, and there he stood with a glass of whiskey in his hand, looking at the sweater I'd brought him like it was something from a thrift store. He took it without a word and walked back inside. That's when I knew my sister had lied to get me here. The house smelled the same. Pine cleaner and cigarette smoke. Everyone was already seated around the table. Aunts, uncles, cousins I barely recognized. They hugged me like I'd just come back from vacation, not like I'd vanished from their lives because this house held monsters they refused to see. I took my seat at the far end, as far from my father as the table allowed. My hands were steady, but my leg bounced under the table so hard I had to press my palm against my knee to stop it. I told myself I just had to survive dinner. 2 hours, maybe 3, then I could disappear again. My father started telling stories about the old days, the cabin trips, the fishing weekends, the neighborhood barbecues where all the dads would drink beer and watch us kids play in the yard. Then he mentioned Uncle Ray. My fork scraped against the plate so loud my cousin flinched. Uncle Ray wasn't my uncle. He was my father's best friend from work who used to babysit me when my parents went out. The man who made me promise to never tell anyone about our special games. The man my father invited into our home for 15 years. I stared at my plate and tried to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. My father kept talking about how Ray had moved to Florida, how they still talked on the phone sometimes, how he missed having him around. He was watching me while he said it, testing me, poking at wounds he knew existed but refused to acknowledge. My aunt asked me what I'd been up to, and before I could answer, my father cut in. Oh, he's been finding himself. He made air quotes with his fingers. Lots of therapy, lots of talking about his feelings. You know how his generation is. They blame everyone else for their problems instead of just toughening up. My aunt laughed nervously. I felt my face go hot. 3 years ago, I'd sat in this same room and told my father what Ray had done to me. I showed him the emails I'd found on Ray's old computer, messages between them where Ray described what he was doing to me, and my father responded with emojis, laughing emojis. My father had looked at those emails, looked at me, and said I must have misunderstood. He said Ray was joking. He said I was always too sensitive. Someone brought up a news story about a coach who'd been arrested for abusing kids on his team. My father leaned back in his chair and shook his head. You know what I don't understand? He said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Why these kids never fight back. When I was young, if someone tried something, you knocked their teeth out. These boys today are soft. They let things happen and then cry about it 20 years later. He looked directly at me. Isn't that right, son? Some boys just don't have it in them to stand up for themselves. The table went quiet. My sister's face was pale. She knew. She'd always known. I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it twice. I opened the folder I'd kept for 3 years. The screenshots of those emails between my father and Ray. The ones where Ray described what he was doing to me every Thursday night while my parents were at dinner. The ones where my father wrote back LOL and boys will be boys and just don't leave marks. I slid my phone across the table to my aunt. I was 8 years old, I said. I was a child when it started. He did it for 6 years while Dad knew the whole time. Dad read the details and laughed about it. He chose his friend over his son. He let it happen because he didn't want to lose his drinking buddy. My father's face went white. He reached for the phone, but my aunt snatched it first. Her hand flew to her mouth as she read. She passed it to my uncle. The phone went around the table while my father tried to explain, tried to say I'd faked the screenshots, tried to say I was mentally ill and making things up. My grandfather stood up slowly. He was 82 years old and hadn't raised his voice in decades. He looked at my father, his own son, and said 5 words I'll never forget. Get out of my house. My father tried to argue. My grandfather picked up his cane and pointed it at the door. I said get out, and don't come back until you're ready to face what you did to that boy. My father looked around the table for support. No one would meet his eyes. He grabbed his coat and left without another word. The door slammed so hard a picture fell off the wall. My grandfather was the one who called the police that night. Ray was arrested in Florida 3 weeks later. My father wasn't charged, but he lost everything that mattered. His family, his reputation, his place at every holiday table for the rest of his life. Last I heard, he drinks alone in a studio apartment and tells anyone who'll listen that his son destroyed his life with lies. The emails are public record now. So is Ray's 20-year sentence.